Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Stories Written by a Current Prisoner. The interview that you're about to listen to is perhaps one of the most unique, most rarest insights that you will come across. I conducted this interview about a year and a half ago with the Mexican Mafia member by the name of Luis Maciel, who was currently sitting on California death row. Now, ladies and gentlemen, though you might find this interview intriguing, let me remind you that a lot of people lost their lives. This is very real, including young children. We're going to be uploading all three parts of this interview series. After we are done uploading all three parts, we are also going to be uploading the Primo interview, who is also currently sitting on California death row for his involvement in this crime as well. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is a slew of new faces that are going to be making their presence on the stories written by a current prisoner. So be on the lookout. Make sure you hit that alarm because you are not going to want to miss these. When that 80,000 marker comes, I promise you guys, there's going to be a special surprise. Let's go ahead and kick this interview off. Thank you for stopping by.
Okay, mucho gusto. My name is Pelon, Luis Manuel. I'm making a podcast with the youngster named Tony. And what I'm about to say and let the listeners know is this. I'm not trying to glorify what gangs are or what prison gangs are. What I'm trying to make people understand is when you get involved in this kind of organizations, you lose one thing. And the one thing you lose is your humankind. Once you lose that humankind in this game, you will never regain that back. You can do a lot of things to try to regain that humankind you had in you, but that thing is gone. The whole purpose of this,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
the whole purpose is to show you that being involved in gangs and prison gangs, it is not something that you should take lightly, and it is not something that's going to be beneficial for you, and it's something that's going to hurt all the way down the line because you're truly going to find out who truly are your friends or who truly is your family. I've been here for over 51 years. I'm 51 years old. I've been here for over 20-something years. And everybody that I thought was on my side, at the end of the day, they all turned on me. I sit here on death row. I go to canteen $220 a month. I could only make it about $30, $40 a month. Before that, I was going to canteen like you would not believe it. But once that ends, you're basically down to zero. And once you try to gain control of that humankind you had in you, you could do whatever you want, be a Cristiano, be a Católico, none of that will work because you lost that. And before you lose that, you must understand that the game, it is not what you think it is.
So what do they call you?
They call me Pelon from El Monte Flores, Tiny Midgets.
What are you incarcerated for, and how long was your sentence?
I'm incarcerated for 5 conspiracy to commit murder. I'm on death row up in San Quentin. I've been locked up since December 6th of 1995, got indicted. I never had a quebrada to go to court. I went straight to Superior Court. I got shambled all the way through.
Do you or did you belong to any type of gangs, groups, or organizations?
Say that again?
Do you or did you belong to any type of gangs, groups, organizations?
Oh, I sure did. The first gang I belonged to was El Monte Flores. That's in Amani, San Gabriel Valley. And down the line, I became a soldado. After becoming a soldado, I became a carnal, a brother of the Mexican Mafia. I was made a brother in April of 1995.
Okay. Now, can you go ahead and walk us down your youth, man, and kind of tell me what was it that gravitated you towards this lifestyle and to wanting to become a gang member? And can you tell me how it was in Monte Flores? I know right there, that's the SGV area. I know right there it's been active. It's always been active. It's always been a treacherous place. So can you tell me how it was for you growing up?
Well, growing up, I grew up right across the street from the Klingermans. The Klingermans is what people would consider the projects. I came from Mexico in 75, 76. and I moved right across the street from the projects. I have two uncles. They're both from Monteflores, my uncle Flaco and my uncle Mondo. And what got me into the gang life is just listening to the stories my tios would tell me about prison, listening to the stories about gang banging, and then, it just fascinated me with some of these stories, like they were unbelievable. And just listening to all of these madres they were doing when they were youngsters, and bringing that information to me, and thinking to myself, like, wow, this is badass, right? And my tío just got out of doing 13 balas and telling me some of the war stories that he was going on in San Quinn, in Folsom, and Tracy, say, doing my tío Mondo. So growing up in that environment really made me to believe, like, being in a gang and joining a gang was one of the best things in the world, right? But hearing more and more stories just got me more fascinated, like, holy, I really want to be part of a gang, right? And when I started first hanging out with my homeboys, we were a bunch of little rugrats kids, 11, 12 years old, running around right in the streets, street boys. Street boys used to be part of a small gang, but it wasn't a gang. It's just a bunch of little rugrat kids running around the neighborhood writing stupid things on the walls. And what fascinated me the most is when my tios would go out gangbanging in their 20s and come back, like, telling us, man, we just did a hit. We just pulled a quet on his vato, shot his vato 2 times, and jumped in the rampa and took off. And, just listening to stories and seeing my tios coming in from doing a job, that was like, holy, I want that. I want to be like them. I want to do that. That was my goal, to try to be like them, and that's what got me into street gangs, by listening to these stories that I truly believe to be truthful, because they were coming from family members. They were coming from my primos. They were coming from my carnal, rest in peace. And listening to them, maybe, in my mind, in my brain, I really thought that this life was
Eventually you started, getting yourself more heavily involved in the streets. Now, can you kind of take that? Huh?
No, some of the splashing back from the shower.
And tell me, when did things actually start getting serious for you? When did you start having to protect yourself and carry a gun, or did you lose any friends? Was there ever a moment in your youth that you remember that really sticks out to you, that kind of really shook you and woke you up, and you realized that this gang banging stuff is no joke?
Well, my first time carrying a weapon, I think I was 10 and a half, 11 years old. I had a 22 with me. And I was walking down Tyler Street, Tyler in Cypress. I was going towards the Klingermans, but I was in Hayes. Hayes is another gang that's an enemy of Monteflores during that time. Well, when I was walking, I was minding my own business. I was dressed up with my members only jacket, my Nikes Cortez, my khakis. I had a 22 in my pocket, and I'm walking, not even 2 cents, but I'm not thinking that this place where I'm at is not my size.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
So when I was walking down the calle across the street, I see a car jam up, and they go, "Where you from?" I said, "Monteflores." Next thing I know, it's boom, 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 boom. What the hell? At first, I was like, I could not believe that I just got shot at by some gang members, right? And I ran like a pollo. I kept running because I could not believe. When I turned around, that car was still right behind me, right? So I was jumping fence to fence, fence to fence, and I totally forgot that I had a gun in my pocket. By the time I figured out I had it in my pocket, I was already across the railroad tracks. When I went over the railroad tracks, right across the railroad tracks is Ramona and Tyler. Right across from that is the Armani Police Department. So the car, when that other car came over, he actually never went over because he knew that's Armani PD, blah, blah, blah. So as soon as I crossed, that's when I pulled out the gun, and I was so nervous, 11 years old, I started shooting, not realizing that I'm shooting in the air. Never used a gun in my life, don't know what the hell it is, but when it was all said and done, that actually that's when I realized, like, holy, this is what my uncles are talking about. The adrenaline, the high you get, like, the scariness, the readiness, knowing that that's your last. It's when I realized that this is no joke. This is really no joke. And as time went by, I started doing dumb things with my home base, doing robberies, going to different neighborhoods, shooting people up, they shooting us, we shooting them. It was just an everyday thing go up to the streets.
What neighborhoods were you going at it with back then?
Well, see, Monte is surrounded, you have to understand is growing up, listening to stories from my uncle regarding Paso Grande. Paso Grande was basically one of our worst enemies. But we also had Alomas, we also had Sangra, and we also had East Sabon. And these four gangs were surrounding us. These were considered to be our mortal enemies. For what reason? Don't know, but all the stories are heard because they killed one of us, we killed one of them, it goes back and forth, these are our enemies. And the major gang that was considered to us are one of our royal enemies.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I've always been, for lack of better words, for lack of better terminology, I've always been fascinated with the wars that some of these cities have, going way back, 40, 50, 60 years back. But can you tell me why the war with El Monte Flores and Base Grande, how did it start, and why is it on site with you guys? How did this whole thing play out?
Here's the thing on that story, right? In like most clicas, nobody knows why. All the gangs will tell you the same thing. Well, they killed one of my homeboys, blah, blah, blah. When in Monte Flores first started, Monte Flores was basically empty lot. When it first started in the 40s, it was all empty lot. And during that time, the original members at the time, his name was Big Al. That was our original older homie. And during those time, there was no such thing as gangs, but there was a such thing as commonality amongst friends, and there was divisions already growing behind women, behind making a little bit of money here and there. And one of the reasons that it first started, from what I was told from my uncle, was that Base Grande killed one of my original homeboys, whose name was Huero, and that's how the war started. It was over the death of one of my homeboys. So from that day on, it's basically been, they're the first ones that actually came over to our side and killed one of our, I think that was in 62 or 63. But from that day on, we've been killing each other. And nobody has ever taken the time to sit down and say, man, why are we killing each other? I know, whatever happened over a century ago. What is the purpose of us continually killing ourselves for a damn calle? It's made no reason. It's been like that. They killed a lot of us, and we killed a lot of that. Goes back and forth. But to be honest, nobody can actually say what was the true reason why it started. The only thing that I do know is what my uncle told me. But then that story that my uncle told me, I was told that never happened. Did you catch what I'm saying? What I'm saying is nobody knows why. Nobody knows why these assassinations between two clicas even started. It could have meant something as stupid as stealing something or, but nobody knows why. Because every time the story gets embroiled to become something that it was not it, or that never happened, or this happened. So to be honest, I cannot tell you. I can only tell you is what my uncle told me, and when I talked to my older homie, said that never happened. I'm like, wait a minute, you just lied to me, Dio. And I said, well, that's what I was told by so and so and so. And so everybody's passing the buck to the next older generation. And to be honest, like I said, we don't know why. The only thing that I knew of growing up is that they were our mortal enemy. And the palabra mortal enemy means that they took something away from us that meant a lot to us. So anytime I hear that word, that makes me to believe they had to kill somebody in my neighborhood that was considered a god to us, or considered somebody that was something during that time when it occurred. But I cannot tell you, to be honest.
Did you lose any friends to this war? Is there somebody that sticks out in your mind that hurt you?
I lost the worst one. The worst one I can honestly say is that we lost was my homeboy Topo. We lost a lot of homeboys, but Topo was our OG. Topo got killed in his own house, where his wife invited other gang members from another territory, from Pomona 12th Street. When he went to his home, his house, his wife and my homegirls invited some other fools in their house.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
He went in there like, what the hell is going on, man? And Topo was considered a good homeboy. He was loyal to the barrio. He was respectful to the barrio. He did everything for the neighborhood. And when he died, that really shook everything up. It shook everything so bad that another of my homeboys went over and killed another guy from that same barrio, from on the 12th Street. But when my homeboy was buried, it was a burial with sadness. It was a burial with hatred. I mean, we all felt the hatred, but we all felt sad. And the reason we all felt that way is because he was a good homeboy. He was a good human being. He was everything to it. You could consider he was like a dad to a lot of us. You know, he was a good boy, and that really shook me up. Like, man, I was just talking to Thurpo 3 hours ago on Garvey and Marby Road. Damn, they just killed him. You know, I'm like, holy, you know, that really shook me up. Another one that really shook me up was my homeboy Sketch. My homeboy Sketch was in love with a girl. They were like sweethearts, and they've been children, man. She went to a party, and they found her in Las Vegas on the highway. Somebody had picked her up, did some horrible. My homeboy loved this girl too, and he loved her so much that he actually went to Pioneer Park, took a 4.5, put it in his chest, and killed himself. And that shook me up because it wasn't about the barrio. It was about his sweetheart. It was about the girl that he loved, the woman that he grew up with, and that really, like, when we buried him, I felt anger. I felt disillusion to see my homeboy in a casket. It was like, you know, I mean, it was just amazing. You know, it's like, what the hell? You know, like, I thought you were better than this, homeboy. You know, to see him there really, you know. And, you know, my homeboy Shy Boy. I mean, I lost so many homies. You know, it's there's too many to count. But the ones that really touched me are those two, Topo and my homeboy Sketch. Those were the only two that touched me because I knew them. I hanged out with them. I seen the love that they both have for different things, but it was still the love. One had a love for the neighborhood, the other one had a life for his sweetheart. And that really did touch me a lot.
When did you first come in contact with somebody of power? When did you meet the first Emma brother, and how was that like, and how did it take a liking to you, and how did you start getting involved?
Well, that's a funny one, right? Because growing up in the Kingdomans, right, I first met, well, I knew who Huero was. Huero is a carnal from Artesia. I know who he was because the guy that I used to hang with, his name was Flaco. That was Huero's stepson. That's not his real son, it's his stepson. His mom is my homegirl, Bunny. And during that time, I'm talking back in the 70s, and Bunny was being with a paisa. That paisa was a drug dealer in the neighborhood. And I'm going inside the Kingdomans, and I see my homeboy Spada, my homeboy Copper, my homeboy Savage, my homie Mars, they all running. I'm thinking like, what are they running for, right? And they're all running because Huero just came in. I'm thinking, that's Flaco's dad, man. But I didn't realize the power that this man had, that some of my homeboys were about something, that they didn't want to be seen in the same area where he was because they were that scared of him. I didn't know this, right? Until like, man, that's Flaco's dad, right? So when I walked in, I'm talking to Flaco, which is Huero's stepson, and I'm looking, and Huero, he's about 6'1", 6'2". He's a big old, he's not Mexicano, he's white, but he lived Mexicanos all his life. But he had so much power in him that his voice, the way he walked, and the way it made some of my homeboys like turn around and walk the other way, and made me think like, who is this guy? You know, why is this guy has so much power? He's not even from my neighborhood, but my homeboys are walking away. Who is this guy? And when I first met him, I was like, wow. But that was just his. I met him, but I never did nothing for him. But, you know, as soon as I took it in, I blanked it out. I went back doing my own little kid things, not even thinking about Huero. Now, the very first carnal that I ever met and that I ever started doing things for was in 1992. His name was Dagwood from Compton, San Antonio, and Frankie B from Merced. Dagwood was a carnal that had a lot of power. And when I first met him, listening to his words, how he got me to believe that being a soldado, being part of his crew, would bring me up and would show me riches, would show me all this. But just listening to his words, man, realize like this guy is about something, man. And when this guy tells me, look, your name is so-and-so, you're from Flores, this is what I need you to do. I need you to go all over San Diego Valley. I need you to find all the representatives from all the barrios in here. If anybody gives you any lead, here's my numero, here's a photo. You tell them that I sent you down here. And I'm thinking, like, is my really for real? If I go to Basse Grande, if I go to Sandra, if I go to Lomas, they know I'm from Flores. I'm 6 feet under, right? So I said, you know what? Okay, let's roll. So I was really shocked and surprised that the first place I went to was Lomas. And I went to their territory, to their heart, because every gang has a certain place where they all hang out. But when I drove in that car, they knew my car. Right away, they were whistling like, oh, there comes this Flores and blah, blah, blah. And next thing I know, I noticed all the gang members just stopped. They didn't stop for me. No, they stopped because they were already told, I'm sending my soldado. He's going to go talk to you guys. And when I got off the car, I'm surrounded by Lomas. These are all enemies. But they're all sitting there looking at me like if I'm a guy, like I'm somebody, and I'm talking to them. And it gave me the impression like, man, this guy not really has a lot of jugo. This guy not call this entire battle and let them know that I'm coming down here and they better treat me with nothing but the utmost respect. And when I saw that, that really shocked me. I could not believe it, that I'm in the center of 22 gang members from Lomas. 6 of them are strapped. 6 of them are talking to you with nothing but love and respect. 6 of them are talking like I'm part of their crew, like I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, this is for real. And that's when I first realized what the power of the enemy was, what the power they have on gangs. What is a complete power that any enemy of theirs could come in their territory, not fully knowing that that enemy shot their homeboys and that enemy is being going to their neighborhood and shooting them up, but they take me in like I was part of their house. That's when I realized, like, and it is about something, you know.
So did you actually end up going to every other city as well?
I went. It took me a month and a half to go all over San Gabriel Valley. I got all the numbers from all the representatives.
You have 60 seconds.
I didn't realize that there is so many clicas in San Gabriel Valley. On top of that, there's clicas on top of clicas. I never knew that. I've met street gangs that were inside street gangs. Like, what the hell? Did not know that. I even met Mexicanos that were consider themselves to be wearing red bands, which is Northern bands, but that's the color of their gang, red bands, and that's against Southern gangs, right? So I met a lot of different gangs. Once I got all the addresses and I got all the information that the hermano needed, I contacted him, and he asked me, okay, I need you to call the representatives, and I need you to bring him in to this bar. Now, this bar that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to tell you how this bar came about. This bar belonged to a biker. And one of the hermanos, Frankie B. from Merced, the waitress was his girl. So this hermano, this waitress, wanted this bar, but they needed to find a reason to get this bar. So the ruca was working in the bar, and she started screaming and yelling that she's got by the owner of the bar, blah, 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 right? So Frankie B, along with other soldados, went inside that bar, had that man sign the bar over to him. Now, this guy is a biker, so he has connections with the Mongols. The Mongols is considered a biker gang. Now, a week later, we're supposed to have a meeting at this bar with all these different gang members from all these cliques. What I did not know, what nobody knew, is that the original owner of the bar that got his bar taken away by the M contacted the Mongols to tell them, hey, man, I just got ripped off by these Mexicans and blah, 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 right? Ben's to knowns is we're inside. There's about 32 of us inside. We're having a meeting with the senor. Ben's to know is bikers come in like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Ben's to know that the head honcho of the biker gang knew Dagwood. Ben's to know at the end of the day, the truck, the owner came in, that truck got signed over to Dagwood because that biker, the original biker of the gang that the guy called, he felt that that guy disrespected the hermano for calling him to try to take over the bar that belongs to the M. So that really tells you the power of that, of the whole transaction, how you really think that by you calling other people that this hermano doesn't have connections. He has so many connections around him, right? And I was just shocked, like, not only you brought
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Not only you brought these bikers in here to try to steal back your bar back from us, but now you have to sign over your truck because the guy that you brought happens to know this hermano. He knows who he is, and they have connections. They have deals with each other down the line. So now you're forced to give your truck to this man. I was like, holy. So I just want to let you know about that bar, how that bar came about. And we had a meeting regarding everything at that meeting. One of the main things hermano told all these gangs, I'm sick and tired of watching you guys kill yourself for stupidities over territories. I'm sick and tired of you gangs going to this clique and killing these vatos just because I'm sick and tired of that. I'm going to stop. If I find out that you guys kill anybody here, your homeboys killed another gang member because he crossed over the line or he crossed over bounds, your ass is going to be grassed, period. This is going to stop today. We have better things to do than to be killing ourselves. And looking at this mano when he's talking to all these gang members, right, I'm thinking like, man, can this guy really, does he really have that power to convince all the gang members in here to go back to neighborhoods and tell the neighborhoods you can no longer go to this neighborhood and shoot them up because if you shoot them up, we're going to get green lighted. Sure enough, his words, we had a peace treaty in the San Gabriel Valley. There was actually peace treaty in San Gabriel Valley. But see, all that was all perpetrated by him to create something else that he was working on down the line with another hermano. Down the line, I will get to that later. So you can. I'm trying to give you all the points that we're working on to do something bigger in San Gabriel Valley. And sure enough, we had a peace treaty. Then the hermano Dagwood gets busted. So the ones in charge now is hermano Frankie B. But Frankie B is more of a treacherous carnal that he does not give it. Another hermano that was with him, it was Flaco from East LA 13. That was another carnal. I'm now a soldier for both of them. And on one of the meetings that carnal taught, we had a big meeting in Northside Bowling. I mean, there was over 300 gang members from all the different gangs in San Gabriel Valley in Northside Bowling in the park. There were so many gangs there, and gang members were like, what the hell is going on here, right? But the one thing that struck me the most is that this hermano did not play. This hermano said, I'm sick and tired and getting tired of watching these come into our territories, take over our drug territories, and sell their drogas. You vatos better start cleaning up your house and get these out of our territories. Remember, he said our territories, not the gang territories, but the enemy territories. I mean, and he said, look at here, and he even threw my barrio on the head. He said, look at here at Monte. Monte Flores has a bunch of is selling drogas in their own territory. This is what we come about when we're allowed in our territories to sell our drugs, and they're making money off our drugs. And I'm sitting here, he never said your gang, he said ours. In other words, the gangs belong to the enemy. I'm sitting and he's making everybody look bad. He's pulling out covers. You got here, the word means African American. He's talking about African Americans selling drugs in Hispanic territories. And he viewed that as a disrespect for the enemy and also disrespect for the raza. Sure enough, after that meeting was broken up, I myself got arrested for exactly what the men ordered us to do. There was an African American selling drugs in my neighborhood, in one of the motels. Me, my homeboy, and another person. I don't want to say that person's name because blah blah blah. And I took a baseball bat and I beat the whole out of him with the baseball bat. I got arrested for assault and battery. There's quite a few guys on the roll for killing African Americans, for their carnal, for telling them to kill. So once we clean everything up, all the territories, everything up, boom, Frankie B gets arrested. He got arrested. When he got arrested in '93, Huero from Artesia comes out. Huero from Artesia is a cold-blooded carnal. He don't play around. He's just cold-blooded, period. He don't play around. What I was trying to tell you earlier from the hermano Dagwood, when he was setting it up, what he was doing, he was setting up San Gabriel Valley so that when Huero got out, Huero had all the information of who was doing what, because now he's taking over the entire thing of San Gabriel Valley. And that was my job when Huero got out. Huero told me straight out, look here, Monte, I need you to find out who's selling what, who's doing what, and you bring me all the information. So I had to get a crew. I got a crew of my homeboys. And once I found out what all the connections were at, who was selling what, who was doing what, I brought all that information to Huero. I said, here it is, bro. And he goes, okay, I need you to go rob all these connections, and after you rob them, you let them know that if they want to sell drogas in our territories, they're going to have to pay renta. Renta means rent. On top of paying rent, they're going to have to buy the drogas from us, period. That's how it's going to work. It took me about 4 months to get everything straightened out through all San Gabriel Valley. I was going every territory that was not paying rent to the inmate, going there to the connections, tying them up, kidnapping them, taking all the drugs, all their money, everything that they had. And then on top of that, I was telling them, you guys can sell drugs, but you need to pay taxes, period. And if you want to sell more, you're going to have to buy them off of us. So it's basically a win-win situation for the inmate. Of course, I had my soldados, so we had to pay our soldados also. And once I found all the drugs in San Gabriel Valley, I found all the connections, then Huero tells me, we need to set up shop. I need you to set up shop in Bolin. I need you to set up shop in Flores. I need you to set up shop in Lomas. All right, cool. So I had to find places to set up shop to sell drugs for the inmate. So once I did that, I was banking in $25,000 to $30,000 a week just on drug sales. Not talking about the collecting from other drug dealers selling drugs, and not the collection that I was from all the drugs that I took from all the connections. I was reselling those drugs back to everyone else that I took it from. So once I got all that started, and once I started making so much money for Huero, when Huero first got out, Huero was staying in an apartment complex. When he met me, I already had him a house. So you could say I was Huero's ace in the home. I did everything for Huero. Whatever he wanted, I did. Any other questions you want to ask?
Was there anybody, or was there any group or set that didn't want to apply and follow these new set of rules that were trying to be implemented on you guys?
Yeah, there was. I had a green light by the paisas. The paisas got together and green lighted me because I was robbing them silly. I was taking pounds and pounds, you name it. And of course, during that process, there were some that didn't want to pay, and they had to get dealt with. For instance, we went to a connection, me, Huero, and another youngster. Huero tells him, you guys going to pay renta, mañana Pelon's going to come, pick up $2,000, he's going to bring you 2 kilos, and you're going to give him $40,000. That's all there's to it. All right, now, Mike. So 2 days later, I go there. Nobody's there. There's only 2 paisas in the house. I walk in. I'm loaded. I got a 9 with me. I'm loaded. There's a paisa on the sofa, but I could tell he's sitting on something that I'm not paying attention. I'm asking, hey, ¿dónde está chingado está este cabrón? Where's his vato, right? In Spanish, right? He's over there in the room, right? So as soon as I go inside a room, that paisa in the room starts shooting. Boom, boom, boom. First thing I do, pull out my cuete, start shooting that in the sofa. What I noticed is the guy in the sofa had a 12 gauge. So what the paisas did, they basically set me up 2 days later to take my account.